Welcome to the MMHP in the 989. Channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history from the city by the bay. And now, here's your host, Scott Baker.
And we're back here at the MMHP in the 989 with part 2 with Butch Heath here. We'd like to thank Butch and Scott Seeberger for stopping out. Butch's country music history is definitely something that we would like to have passed on to generations. He's been one of our forefathers here, and he's based out of the mid-Michigan area. If you haven't heard part 1, please introduce yourself to the man there. And right now we're going to gobble up part 2, and Scott Seeberger's questions and ability to give us these ideas. We really appreciate him coming on and being a part of the show. He fit right in with us here, so we hope to have Scott back for more episodes as well. In the meantime, dig in for part 2 with the legendary country musician, Butch Heath.
Did you have any contact with Lucky's record shop in Bay City at all?
No, I just had my single in there on consignment.
Because he used to have, I think it was the Michigan Country Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he was involved in that somehow.
Yeah, Lucky. That was the original Lucky, Frank Piplinski.
Yeah.
A good guy. I have fond memories of Lucky going in there when I was a little guy and him pointing me to some good records and so on. Yeah,
it was the best record store, I think, in the region. Back in the,
this was downtown. Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on Midland Street.
Yeah.
He had a couple locations down there.
Yeah.
It's not where the Lucky's is now. That was after he sold the business that it moved to that corner location.
Right.
But yeah, good guy.
Yeah,
I'm the only one in the group, Butch, that's not a musician.
Well, wait a minute.
Okay.
Me too.
Let me ask, you said you played rhythm guitar. What makes a great rhythm guitarist? Are there any others that you admired that were rhythm guitarists? But what do they bring to the game?
Most rhythm guitar players are singers. So the guitar is kind of second was for me. I've never been a great rhythm player, but I know enough to play my own songs, and I play them at the tempo that I like them. But more importantly, as a lead guitar player, to me that sells the song more than the rhythm. But you got to know how to count for one thing, and but it fills in the band. If you got a 3 or 4 piece band, you need a good rhythm guitar player that keeps their rhythm.
A rhythm guitar player definitely frames the song.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, Elvis was a rhythm guitar player.
Yeah, he was. Definitely in that.
Who's that?
Elvis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they just had the trio. Elvis on rhythm, and Scotty on lead, and Bill Black playing the bass.
Right. Bill Black played bass, that's right, yeah.
They generated a pretty good sound there.
Johnny Cash only had the...
Well, that's right. Same thing with Johnny Cash, yeah.
But you know his song when you hear it, don't you?
Oh, sure do.
Yeah.
Did you ever do anything with Johnny?
No, never did. I was on Hickory Lake where he lived. Bobby Randall lived in a big yellow house right across the lake from Johnny Cash.
Did he?
But I didn't see him. I thought maybe I'd see him on the boat, but didn't see him.
Mm-hmm.
But
now Bobby Randall, you've brought him up twice, and he's quite the musician. Is he originally from Michigan?
He's
Midland.
Midland too, and I know he did Sawyer Brown, right?
Sawyer Brown and Confederate Railroad.
Confederate Railroad, yep. We'll have to get a hold of him.
Then I saw him on TV recently. He plays at like a Grand Ole Opry in
Orange
Florida.
Blossom Opry.
Orange Blossom Opry.
Yeah.
Which is one of maybe the hottest venue for country music in Florida.
I've never heard a band any better than the band they got now.
Fantastic band.
They got a steel player and a drummer that's right on with the beat, and a keyboard player that sings just like Vince Gill. So
Wow.
it's just a great band.
That's an extremely popular venue. I can't think of anything in Michigan that would be comparable.
There's nothing like that. They have a Thursday night as I don't call it amateur night. They call it some local thing. Local people come and sing. And I've been invited several times, but of course they don't pay anything. So I don't want to. And I live in Florida in the wintertime, but it's a long ways from me. We go to the show once in a while. But they got Thursday night for that, for locals. And then Friday night, the band puts on a 2-hour or 3-hour show just the band, and then Saturday night they bring in stars, and
And they always open for the Stars. They do about a 30-minute set.
yeah, and sometimes they back the star, and sometimes they don't. Depends on if they have their own band. But he's been around, and he plays steel and fiddle, and he says you can't find a job in Nashville playing steel. They don't have many steel guitars on records anymore.
Wow.
But anyway, he loves what he's doing.
Yes.
Yeah.
You got any backstory with any, before I move on to my next question, any Willie, Waylon, any Merle, any of those stories?
No, I don't believe I do that. No, I don't think so. I just admire Waylon and Waylon.
Yeah. So what was some of the last shows you did when you were backing, like Tiny Tucker and them? Was there anything through the 80s maybe? We haven't talked about the 80s at all, or 90s?
I don't really I don't have the dates in my head pinned down. All I know is I've been playing a long time.
Butch, I know you do go down to Florida in the wintertime, and you have a group you're playing with down there. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's got the same. I used the same name down there, Yesterday's Country. And one ironic thing, a bass player from up here, Bill Freeman, lives in Port Charlotte, which is about 20 miles from I'm in North Fort Myers. So we didn't have to get together and learn each other's stuff. He knows it. But I'm really lucky I found a fiddle player from Canada, and he comes to Florida every year, and he plays all the stuff. I say what I like about him, he knows when to play and when not to play, instead of playing all the time like some guys do. But his name's Cy Pepelinski. So anyway, and then I got a steel player down there. It's very good. So
Wonderful.
Are Florida audiences any different than Michigan?
To me, it's more fun because they're all on vacation like we are. So when you're on vacation, you're in a good mood, and they like to reach in their wallet for the tip jar. So we don't mind that.
Fair enough.
But I enjoy playing there. But up here, the people, so that's also fun. So it's not that either one are really better than the other, but down there, they're all in an excellent mood.
Well, they're all probably retired.
They are.
Yeah, that puts you in a good mood.
That's
right
one
there.
thing that's a little bit wrong with Florida. You get down there and all the musicians that are retired, they'll go play for nothing.
Oh.
So, but I don't do that.
Well, reaching across the music history here that you've given us, can you give us some names of the bands or musicians that you've shared the stage with from Michigan, or a band maybe from Detroit or whatever, UP, that you were like, man, I thought they'd go far, and that really impressed you all these years? It doesn't matter what era, just some of your favorite bands you've played with.
Well, the Boss Men, were they're still. I don't know how long they went on after we moved on, but the guy that played keyboard for the Boss Men went with Hank Jr.
Yeah, this is Warren Keith.
Warren Keith.
Yeah.
And another one of them went. Lenny. He didn't go anywhere, did he?
No, he's still in
Saginaw.
Yeah. I can remember Lenny had to come in our bar. He played out on the beach, and we played in the bar. Well, he must have had something. He was smoking something or had a drink. Or he had put a watermelon on his head and walked in the bar. That was so funny.
Lenny Renicky.
That sounds like him.
Yep.
Yeah, he was a little weird too. You talked about somebody weird, but I guess he was a great bass player.
Oh, yeah.
And
Then he lit his trumpet on fire.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And Pete Woodman lives down in Detroit. And,
Yeah, he was just up in Freeland.
I know,
I saw his
well, he's
band a
from
couple
Freeland.
weeks ago. Right.
yeah. I wanted to go. How'd they sound?
Excellent. He even did a drum solo, and I tell you, I think he just turned 80. And I hope I have that energy.
Is that right? Yeah.
I mean,
he's just
the drum
cool dude.
solo was as good as anybody.
Yeah. He is really cool. Yeah. It's funny. You speak about different genres, but I don't. I'm not saying I'm standoffish or that they are, But there's rock and roll people, and there's country people, and there's jazz people. But I don't think it's that we have anything against the other, but it don't mesh, I don't think.
Well, my question was more of the country artists that you've seen around the state. And I know you were impressed by the Bossman and they were rock, but
yeah.
I'm talking about there had to be some country artists. I mean, you probably know Laurie Middlebrook. You probably know so-and-so.
Yeah.
I mean,
Michelle Spitz, I think she just got on the Hall of Fame.
And she was just put in there. Yeah.
I just wondered if there was more.
Another good singer that sang just like George Jones and Merle Haggard is Glenn Hilton. And his son plays with Kinfolk, I guess they pronounce it. They played it on Sunday nights at Willow, and they're in Texas now.
Oh.
And I understand they're doing very well. A friend of ours is a friend of theirs, Bernie Nelson. Bernie's from Auburn originally, but we just got to know him, and my wife and him chat back and forth on the internet. I better watch him.
Scott, who's the country band that won all the awards at the last review?
Oh yeah,
it was the old
country something.
The old
they were
family country band,
family tradition band.
Family tradition band.
I've heard them. I never heard them.
Okay, I was going to ask you if you'd heard them play.
And the 25-cent beer band's got a good group.
They're similar to that in that range. Yeah,
they do the newer country.
Yeah.
Isn't a lot of the new country more rock and roll?
Yes. Sure is.
That's why you don't have the steel guitar anymore.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll mention a fiddle or a steel guitar or a pickup truck. Then they call it country. But I don't do stuff like Ernest Tubb and all that real draggy country. I mean, I didn't. But I guess I've more fit into what they call the prime country, 80s and 90s. That's the stuff I like to do.
George Strait.
Yeah, George Strait's really cool. Alan Jackson.
Pre-Garth.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Pre-Garth, huh?
Yeah.
In rock and roll, though, they talk about classic rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
And classic rock and roll is like 80s and 90s or 70s or...
Well, I think classic rock is more like 70s, isn't it?
It's what it normally is, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. 80s is always 80s rock, you know. But.
Yeah, that's
But to me, classic rock is 60s.
Yeah, definitely.
That's funny. I think the same as you.
Yeah.
We're getting up there.
Yeah, I guess the 60s still in there, but it'd be later 60s,
It's like 65 to 75.
Yeah, it has to get into the Beatles and the Doors and, from the 60s and then into the 70s.
Did you play with anybody in the 70s or 60s that took off? That either played with you or shared the stage with you, country-wise? That you saw go on to do bigger and better things from around here?
Bobby Randall.
Well, Bobby, as an individual, but I'm talking about groups or individuals. Yeah.
I don't know of any group that
that
they get real popular around here and do well here. Yeah. But I don't know of any that really took off.
Yeah, but Sawyer Brown was really the only Michigan kind of country band that really hit it.
I remember in the 90s.
The reason they were in Michigan was because of Bobby and Jimmy Skolton.
Right.
Yeah.
They're from Midland, but the keyboard players and Mark Miller, the singer, they're from Palatka, Florida.
Oh, okay.
So you went on through the 90s and the aughts and you built your own home studio where you recorded those CDs
Yeah, in my living room.
Do you still record?
No, I don't. Well, I think I'm gonna make another one just on my own because you go to Nashville, it really costs a lot of money. I had good musicians.
You can get a crack band in town here.
Oh, you can.
I mean, you got Wallacanga still. You got all your guys. Bobby Randall's coming on. All them guys.
Well, Jeff played bass for me, and Arlen played keyboards.
He's a cousin of mine.
Arlen is?
My mom's a Willette, yeah.
Oh, is that right?
That whole side was through.
Arlen just got the new church. He left the church.
I heard. With it. Yeah. We don't know each other very well, but we friend each other. We kind of know a little bit of the lineage, but through the grandpas and the uncles, we're somewhere on the Willette side. That's my mom's.
Well, I better be careful what I say then.
You can say all you want.
No, he's a good friend of mine. He used to go to the church in Midland that I went to.
Yep.
And so I know him quite well.
Because you've gone through some health issues too.
Yeah, he had throat cancer. And that's pretty bad for a singer.
Yeah, especially a young one.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Butch, you mentioned a while ago Buzz Ryder.
Yeah.
Why do I know that name?
Well,
he made records, didn't he? Or
well, he was a kind of a local, like I was, just a few years older than me, but and he promoted shows. He used to do some booking, and brought some of the stars in, and then he started the Michigan Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay.
They call it Michigan Hayride. That's what they called it.
Is there a standalone building for that now?
No.
No.
It was the guy over in Hastings. It's not really Hastings. It's another little town. But anyway, that's where they had it. And they had a big auditorium that held like 300 people. And then they had all the vendors came in and had big stars come in. So it was big. But then the fellow that owned that, his health was bad and he was getting old. So he sold it to one of the people that used to sing there. And he moved it to West Branch. And they had a little building just like this, an office. And he did a lot on the computer, but never really promoted it as country. It's kind of fallen apart, I think, very honestly.
Sorry to hear that.
A couple other names I came up with Max Falcon.
I knew Max Color.
Max Color, yeah, because Bob Binder, a friend of mine, he played guitar with Color, I think, Max Color.
Max Color, yeah. Played at
but then I have a record by Max Falcon.
Oh, yeah.
They're not the same.
I don't know who Max Falcon is.
I think Max Falcon was, if I remember correctly, he was on that route that Roy Hockley played on. They played at
Empire Show
at the Empire Show Bar.
Oh, okay.
And what was her name? The girl that sang with him too.
Well, Joey J.
Joey J. Yeah.
With Roy Hockley, yeah. But Max Falcon, I think, played the Show Bar and whatever other venues that those.
Because he had a couple 45s and they were a yellow label.
Yeah, I think he was one of the guys that kind of inspired the guys that Ron Cunningham's band.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think they had seen him at the Show Bar or something like that, and that might have been an inspiration for the Del Reys.
Okay.
I think.
Anyway. we used to have the bands, all the local bands knew each other, and we used to have jamborees, that we call them, where you get one guy, like I would host it, and I maybe get paid for that job, and then all these other guys come and play free because they want to get noticed by the owner. You know that.
Yeah.
And then the next month or some other time, the guy that played free here, he'll go to his place and put a jamboree on. And,
do you remember a band? It was Frank Zoltan and his trio, or
the name sounds familiar, Fred, but I can't say. What did
or
they do?
Bill Richmond.
Oh, Bill Richmond. Yeah.
I got to play with him a number of times later on in his life, but
Saxophone player and great.
I didn't know him as a sax player because I saw Bob Binder gave me these photos, and in one photo he's playing the fiddle, which I know him as, and then the next picture he's playing the saxophone.
Yeah, he was great. I think he's passed now.
Butch, from the early '60s, do you remember Bob Harris and the Kings Four?
Yep.
What can you tell us about that? They're a Midland group, weren't they?
Yeah, and they kind of they did a little country, but then they went to be like a show band.
Right.
I think they might even got a job on some cruise ships or something.
The Boblo boat.
Yeah.
They worked the Boblo boat.
Yeah, okay.
Their album is for sale at the Antique Warehouse.
Is it?
Really?
Yeah. I see it there. It's been there. Every time I go in there, I look because I think about buying it.
What are they asking for?
And I have the 45.
I think they did
$18 or something.
They the bass player has been on that Kings Four is Kings Four is or
Kings Four
is Bill Freeman that plays with me in Florida.
Oh, no
He's
kidding.
kind of Buck Knight he's from Harrisville. He's a rhythm guitar player and singer. So
I might have to go get that album.
I understand they were very successful.
yeah, they did. Yeah, another one, locally successful, I would say.
Yeah.
They did, they did a tour, but they didn't do strictly country, but they were, like you said, successful for a local group.
Well, Opperman out of Saginaw booked them.
Oh, did he?
And he said he booked them all over the state.
Oh, that's great.
He said they had state appeal.
Oh, yeah.
He used to book a lot of bands, apparently.
Yes.
The Stingrays and maybe the Del Rays. But his name kept coming up a lot. That back then, he used to book all these bands.
We'll have to find out next week.
Yeah.
He'll be here next week.
Is he a keyboard player and a horn player?
Horn player,
Keyboard
New
player.
Reformation. Yeah.
Keyboard player.
Keyboard.
That's right. Yeah.
I think I just saw him in Frankenmuth. Him and
Yeah.
Andy played with Michelle Spitz.
Oh, okay.
And
Wow. You had any other questions there, Scott? You were really intrigued about this interview, and I thought maybe you'd have a whole case of questions. Is there anything else that we haven't tickled yet?
I've asked several. So
he thought I was more interesting. Probably.
Or he just let us keep rambling until you figured we'd train you.
Yeah.
I just know that Butch always draws a crowd. You say Butch Heath, and that country crowd is right there every time.
We've been
Like I said, we came to Pinconning that was back in the 70s.
Oh yeah.
And that place was packed.
Oh yeah. We've had really good luck. I don't know. I guess because we stayed together so long with different bands, rather than most musicians are.
Well, you
bands.
say we, though, Butch, and I think it's you.
Well,
You've
thank
always
you.
maintained it.
Yeah. Thank
You've maintained a quality with your name alone that does that. And that's, as a solo man myself, I've found that you always try to surround yourself with the best players,
Yeah.
do your thing the best way. And if you would have given up, that wouldn't have been a we, that would have been a you,
Yeah,
So
probably.
you got to remember that,
Yeah.
that you took care of this all this time for almost 70 years.
And you're really known for dance. I mean, people came to dance to your music. And so if you had a crowd that wasn't working with you, is there a song or two you always pulled out that you knew could get them on the dance floor?
That's one of my next questions.
What's that? Righteous Brother? Oh my love, my darling love. That
Chain Melody?
Yeah, on Chain Melody. If they don't dance to that, they're dead. That's what I always say.
All right. I was going to ask you, top three, if you had to put a set list together to play for us tonight, what would be the first three songs you'd play for us?
I probably like to get them going with "Don't Rock the Jukebox." That's an Alan Jackson song, and George Strait's another one I like, and it does Fort Worth Ever Cross Your Mind?
Okay.
That's a good one.
You also do All My Exes Live in Texas.
Yeah.
That's another one that goes over.
You know
big
why?
with
Because
you.
people think they know that song. They get right to the bridge, then they'll sing the bridge with you, but they don't know the verse. But
That's funny. That's known as a chorus. That's
Yeah.
a big chorusy song right there.
Yeah,
no
it
one
is.
knows the rest of it, though.
that's exactly right.
What other song would you give us if you were to pull out a set on us?
Well, I'd probably be selfish and sing a couple on my CD.
Yes.
I got this one called "If I Ever Need a Lady, I'll Call You," and that's that fella I ran into in Iowa that wrote it and recorded it. I like that, and I like any Ray Price song. Crazy.
Oh,
Blues,
Ray
and
Price. Yeah.
That guy can sing. We booked him. I did a little booking for a couple of years there. We booked Ray Price in the Midland Armory.
I know where the Midland Armory is.
Yeah. I was still with WXOX at that time, I think. But anyway, he's got such a strong voice. He holds his mic down at his belt.
No kidding.
Really?
Just big. And he had he has a band, but he when he had For the Good Times, and it had all those violins in it. Mm-hmm. Well, he got 4 violins out of the Chicago Musicians Union and brought them into Midland, and We didn't make any money on that show. but
Surprise.
It was a surprise, yeah.
You've mentioned a lot of artists that you've worked with, name artists. What did you think of Hank Williams?
I never knew him. I love his music. He's one of the best songwriters ever. But we did the Saginaw Fair with his band. And they opened it up by playing a Hank Williams song and then playing behind it. And then they shut that off and they continue with the song, the live bands. It was his regular steel guitar player and fiddle, and I think they had a lead guitar player, but not the one that played with him all the time. I can't think. But that was the Saginaw Fair, so we got to know them guys. We met them, I just put it that way. And,
what year was that, Butch?
oh my goodness, it was. When did Hank Williams die?
Well, it was,
51?
Yeah, it was New Year's Eve, right?
51.
New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
He was on his way to the Opry, I think, if that's the story. I don't know, you guys might know that story better than I do. But yeah, let's see, that was 51. And it had to be a few years after that because they were traveling just without Hank, of course.
Just
the band, yeah.
with Hank Williams' name. I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
right,
as big as Hank Williams
And I
was.
don't know
Yeah.
if they even had anybody singing, but you play with that steel guitar, you know that's a Hank Williams song.
Yeah.
Your Cheating Heart and Cold Heart.
Yeah. So many great tunes.
You know, the county fairs used to feature country music so heavily. I don't see it happening today like it did 20 years ago. Did you ever perform at the Clare County Fair?
Yep.
Because they're really known for country too.
Yeah. For best one, I didn't perform in. Best one I ever went to is Ionia Free County Fair.
I heard that's great too.
Yeah, I saw Conway Twitty, Merle Haggard, and George Jones all in one show.
Wow.
And it was raining, and we sat in the crowd and listened to it. That's how much of a country geek we were.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't know. Our fairs, I know the fair in Bay City or Bay County Fair has just really dwindled over the years. I don't know. How about Midland?
Happen?
Is that still strong?
Midland's fair, still fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's still doing well, and I understand Saginaw's fair, since they've gone out to Chesaning, is doing better than they have in many years.
Yeah, the first year they were a little bit bad because people didn't want to drive out there. But now I think when it gets established, I think they're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Bay City's been dripping for quite a while.
That was the first week of August, and then the week after was the second week of August, which was Midland. It's almost bang bang every year, those two back to back nowadays, but not a whole lot of music.
Midland used to bring in some really big artists, and
they had Brooks and Dunn in there.
Did they bring in the Beach Boys?
Alan Jackson, Mark Farner. They've had a lot of great acts.
If they're lucky, they get them when they just got signed with a contract and haven't sold any records yet. Because next year it's going to go off.
Yeah.
I think they had Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
He opened for Chuck Berry, I believe.
Really?
Or Bruce and E Street Band did.
In Midland, eh?
I think they backed Chuck Berry.
I'll be damned.
That would have been a show to see, right?
Really?
I guess so. Wow.
Yeah.
And as you were saying on your way up,
Springsteen only had his first album out.
That's cool. That's something I've never even heard of for our area. But you were Chad Cunningham was in here, and he's booked. He was telling us how he got 3 country ones in a row. Trace Adkins the year before he broke, or while he was going, but he got them on the cheap, before they took off. Who's the wife?
Faith Hill.
Faith Hill was his big one.
Just on the rise.
And there was one other one too, a lady, and I did the interview for the Times. I can't think of her name offhand, but anyway, the following year he wouldn't have been able to touch him in price.
That's what it is. Did you know this fella from Millington, Waylon?
Waylon Hannell?
Yeah.
Wonderful. I got to play with him in Saginaw this year.
He performed.
We did the Saginaw On Stage series, and we shared a green room together, and I could tell him a mile away, And he shook my hand, and I met his family, and he's a hell of a singer.
Well, this fella does a booking around here. A black gentleman.
Oh, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
He puts on the Country Fest here in Bay City. Yep. He also works a lot with Mode's Tavern and Auburn O's.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, he just bought. He was at Auburn Hotel. They opened back up.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
and they had this Bernie Nelson who wrote "Daddy Was No Cadillac," and he's the one my wife's been friends with. And matter of fact, we just got a signed book. But I said that I told this guy, I said, you better get Ed Whalen booked as much as you can, because as soon as one of his records hit, he's a really good entertainer and got a great voice.
And he's playing regularly at the hotel?
No, he plays all over. This guy's booking him in some big places and some not so big.
He played Munger too. He played the Potato Fest too. That was the first time I seen him on a bill with some bigger names. It was nice to see.
We did that Munger Festival for 9 years when it first started. Yeah. And the Auburn Corn Festival, I played there when they used to be at the high school. And I think I was like 5 years in a row, and then they started switching bands around. But
they still bring in music for the Corn Fest.
Yeah.
But so many of those fairs aren't doing it like they used to.
Mm-mm. I don't know if people are trying to get too much money or why, or they just weren't working out, I guess.
Well, plus the last 2 years really put a etch in people's memories on what's really happening, because you couldn't do anything for the last 2 years. So, I mean, if it was dwindling by heading into COVID, it looks like really bad now.
Yeah.
Well, I think we even take our own experience. We don't go out like we used to. The couch feels pretty good on a Saturday night.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Butch, thank you so much for all these years of music, all you've put into our area, all the Hall of Fame or from onward. I mean, the one place I guess we haven't talked about is getting you in the Opry, so we got to figure out how to make a phone call down there to some old friends.
Some janitors. No.
But you've been a pleasure for all of us, man, and for this area and for music in Michigan. And we thank you so much for coming.
I wished I'd been a little more prepared with the dates, but
you were here last week. I thought you had your stuff.
I was close. Last week I had it. You should have.
Yeah, that was my bad for not just saying stay here. Some of the other one's home.
There you go.
Thank you, Butch.
All right,
man. Thanks a lot, Butch. You're great.
Thank you.
The MMHP is hosted on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and our own Libsyn podcast site. You can also search MMHP989 on Facebook for up-to-the-minute information, as well as both Dr. J and Sir Fred's album picks of the week, posted every weekend. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, brought to you by Michigan Rock and Roll Legends, located both inside the Bay County Historical Museum on Washington Avenue, as well as Scotty's Sandbar on Evergreen Drive at the Bay City Middle Grounds.
On behalf of the hosts, Gary, Dr. J. Johnson, Sir Fred Rife, archivist and videographer Mike Beatty, and myself, this podcast wouldn't be here without Studio 163's Alan Garcia, the voice of MMHP, Mr. Eddie Switek, all of our guests, and you, the listeners.
You've been listening to the MMHP and the 989. From all of us at the podcast, we want to thank you for tuning in.
Very cool. Thanks for all the memories.
Oh, thank you. It was fun. I wish I could have remembered all the memories.
We've got so many of them.
Yeah.
That Hank Williams story you pulled out blew my mind. That was great.
Yeah, I never heard that one.
Either, yeah. On one of the NPR shows, there's one or two members of Hank Williams' group. They're still doing interviews. I don't know if they're playing anymore, but they're up in their 90s now.
Oh, yeah, they got to be,
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I got a big thrill out of meeting Scotty Moore. That was a lot of fun to me. He's just a regular guy like.
Did you get a picture with him?
Yeah, I think I did.
We would love if you can.
I got to meet him too. I've got a picture of.
I think I got one at home. My wife took it.
He's very down home and humble.
If you would be able to send me a copy of that on Facebook so we can add that to the show.
I'll do that.
Really?
You're kidding
at
me.
the Ponderosa Stomp.
You're kidding
Scotty
me.
Moore and James Burton.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy who was the guitar player in the Johnny Burnett Trio.
Oh my God.
Paul Burleson.
Paul Burleson. I got a picture of it. It's documented.
That concert.
I don't know how it happened, But they all backed up Lazy Lester,
Yes.
and, you know, took trades on the guitar.
He's a blues artist, so that is amazing.
Yeah.
Could Scotty adapt to the blues genre?
Oh,
He could play anything, I think.
yeah.
Well, you know, all those Sun records with Elvis,
They had a blues
They
touch.
always had one side was more rhythm and blues,
Yeah.
and then the other side was kind of country. That was
Yeah.
the
Heartbreak
the approach.
Hotel on
Yeah.
RCA.
I heard that Scotty Moore and the backup band with Elvis were only paid when the Colonel took over.
No.
That was
A
a
small
shame.
salary.
That
Yeah.
was a shame.
Well,
Big
the
crowd.
Colonel didn't understand
he didn't
how
get it.
important that band was. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, it's Scotty Moore doing all the
three of them
solos.
that developed
Yeah.
that sound. You know, at Sun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, jeez. One of the mistakes that the Colonel made.
He did some good things, but
He
then
did,
there were
but he made a
other
couple
things, you just shake
Colossal
your head.
wonders.
Well, after watching that movie, I just
He
like
was a
him even
gambler, I
more.
guess. That was the biggest deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people, I've read reviews and they were saying that was Tom Hanks's worst acting.
Oh, I thought he
And
did
I
a good
thought,
job.
what? What
Yeah,
are
he
you
was-
talking about?
Yeah. Tom Hanks was great.
I thought
Yeah.
his voice, the way he used it, accentuated the part. And I'm sure Tom Parker did not speak exactly that way. They have recordings. He doesn't speak that way. But he accentuated the part, and I thought he was great.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see if it gets any Academy Award nominations. I think it should.
Yeah.
And it's so far ranked in the top 10 films of the year so far.
Yeah.
I gotta see it. I heard it just hit the.
behind only Top Gun,
At the time when they both came out. But
but
Yeah.
it's slipped down. What else? What's outselling it?
well, it's not that they're outselling.
Or, I
It's
mean,
it's just
outrunning
that
it.
through the first 9 months of the year, it's ranking in the top 10. I don't know where it's in the top 10,
Okay.
but it was a huge film, and it brought older people to the theater for the first time in years.
Me.
Me, yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Theaters are struggling to survive, and
Yeah, they got a $3 special going.
Well,
Yeah, I
that
went
was just
for
last Saturday,
$5.50.
though.
Oh, was that like just once, is it?
I think it was. Yeah, we went to see where the crawdads sing.
Oh,
which
that's a
was-
good movie.
It was excellent.
I hear that's a
My
good
wife
film.
read the book.
Yeah, I read the book too, and I thought, oh, they're not going to be able to make a movie
Yeah.
of this.